Hi, Willem. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking part in this video series of one-to-one interviews we're going to be doing with leading lights within the hotel technology sector. I know you're incredibly busy, so I do appreciate you carving out some time to do this with us. And I guess what we're looking at here is the overall topic. Everyone's talking about agentic AI agents. We're hearing a lot about it from the perspective of what that will be doing for travelers, hotel guests, people looking to book. But we really wanted to look at it from the perspective of its potential impact on the current hotel tech stack, the hotel tech industry, and fast forwarding kind of 3 to 5 years as this thing develops. So it's a bit of a future gazing, a little bit of flip-flopping backwards and forwards from now to the present. And we thought we'd start off just by looking and getting your perspective initially of what you perceive as the potential opportunities for the hotel tech providers, and also where the potential threats you perceive could be coming from. So over to you. What is your view? Let's start with the opportunities first and foremost. What's your view on that, Sake?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, Trevor. It's a broad question because indeed the market is changing immensely, right?
Absolutely.
It's a super quick technology that's popping up, and everybody's asking the question like, okay, what can we do with it, right? One of the most obvious use cases is automating customer service with AI, right? Because it's really great at rendering text, but it's great at rendering many types of output. So I think many hoteliers and also many tech vendors, like what we briefly spoke about just before we kicked off, like many tech vendors also saying like, hey, don't bring me another headcount. How can we optimize the processes in our organization with AI instead of adding people to the team?
Absolutely.
So I think we're kind of rebalancing how we are working and who creates what value.
Yep.
So I think for example, for us as a hospitality tech company, we have many processes, and before we think like, okay, there's more in this process, so we add a headcount. But instead we think about, okay, what is the process actually? Like, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? And what parts of this which can we automate in general, and what part of this can we use AI for that? I think AI is also a great tool for senior people, to have a lot of juniors working around them, right? Because senior people really know what has to be done, and junior people are primarily more executing in that.
Yeah, task oriented.
Task oriented. So I don't think it will take. I think it will actually invite for more creativity on both on the hotel side and on the vendor side of how we are creating together in the hospitality space.
I think it was interesting just picking up on a point that you said there about how you're looking at it internally as well, and a lot that you're reading is almost about looking at these AI agents.
Yeah.
And your point about headcount as being a digital headcount, so to speak, looking at your operations, your department. So you may have that human, what they talk about, human in the loop, I guess, and people use different terminologies where it comes in, but kind of having that human oversight. But then you would have agents that they would almost be overseeing, that would be doing some of those task repetitive actions. And they're then freeing up that time. I guess the challenge is working out, okay, what am I going to do with that person now that we're taking off maybe 20-30% at the beginning of the work that they're doing? How can we free it up, and how can we be maximizing that value? So I guess that's something that hoteliers are doing, but also, as you say, from the tech developers, what you're doing as well. What do you see as where does agentic AI agents, how does that pose a threat? Because wherever there's an opportunity, there's also a threat, kind of balances the two out. How do you see that posing a potential threat to
Yeah,
the hotel tech players as we see it today, but kind of looking forward?
yeah, yeah. I think different products in the hospitality space, they have more of an opportunity to really do what they want to do, right? So
Hmm.
staffless hotels have a huge opportunity to automate almost everything, right?
Yep.
But for example, in more upscale hotels where also the human bit plays, or the human interaction plays a big part, I think we kind of see a rebalance there, right? Communication or digital customer service might become easier, or personalization outreach might become easier.
Hmm.
So that will become more automated. I think the value of a human interaction will increase in that way because digitally the value will dilute, right? Because we
Yep.
know it's then like digitally automated. So will become more value in the actual human interactions.
Got you.
So I think there's going to be a shift towards creating more creative experiences and also creating more human-centric experiences because digital experience will be more automated because they're very straightforward
Hmm.
processes.
Makes a lot of sense. One of the things we've been reading and conversations that I've had recently, when you look at the major consultancy companies, a lot of
Yeah.
them are talking about clients that they're working with, where they're obviously closely embedded in what they are doing strategically. And
Hmm.
a theme seems to be that they are working with them in terms of developing their own AI agents and agentic AI within those corporate entities.
Yeah.
Now, we know that the hotel industry is often slow to adopt, or slower, should we say, to
Hmm.
adopt technology. Could we, as we look ahead into the future, do we see a scenario where new or existing agentic AI businesses start to target the hotel industry, and actually are working with a broad range of players and potentially pose challenges to the hotel solutions that exist at the moment because suddenly
Yeah.
people are bringing it in house? What's your thought on that?
Yeah. So these big companies, they building agents to automate certain processes which they have, and they can do that because they have so much data already in place, and that data is well structured.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, exactly where the opportunity also lies in the hospitality space.
Hmm.
When having your reservation data, your customer data, really centralized into one place, you have the opportunity um, to start deploying agents, to create more personalization,
Hmm.
or also to ask your data, okay, actually, what is happening? What are my different guest segments that are doing really well in my customer journey? So when you have your data in place, you can also start querying that data, or you can start using that data with agentic AI on top of that,
Yep.
of course, with the right instructions as well. And another point, the second point to that is that personalization will become much easier, right? So I'm planning my summer, as
Hmm.
maybe many people are
Everybody are.
doing. Yeah. And instead of like Googling around and maybe scrolling on Instagram, I'm like, okay, I want to experience X, Y, and Z. I'll run a deep research with ChatGPT, and it's actually gonna scan the internet for like 30 to 60 sources and
Hmm.
really create like a personalized plan of how I will spend my summer. And I think there will be more products popping up here and there that are really good in understanding what a person wants to experience, and therefore also um, crafts a travel plan,
Yep.
or crafts an experience. So I see that like as a whole, like on kind of multi-stay trips, but also in terms of what you want to experience in a hotel.
Mhm.
So I really see that personalization becomes much easier, and there's so many examples across industries, right? So of how personalization becomes much more easy with AI.
Yeah, very much so. It was interesting that your planning of your holiday started with "I want to experience this,"
Yeah, exactly.
and that's been the big shift, isn't it? About how people have been talking for the last 18 months, 2 years about the guest experience and that
Yeah,
experiential approach to now finding what they want to do next, and
yeah,
these platforms now enable us to come at it from that direction rather than before it would have been a nightmare to even contemplate. We almost used to think, where are we going to go? Where are we going to stay? And then what's around it that we can go and experience? And suddenly it's
yeah.
almost flipped it on its head, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Before we kind of filter maybe on booking.com or like search for a hashtag on Instagram. I think that discovery is going to change a lot in that sense. I now just asked my GPT, my personalized digital twin, like, hey, I'm having a wedding in Greece and I also want to hike in the Alps, so give me a beautiful trip. And half an hour later, I've discovered 10 to 20 new hotels that I would really love to visit on the way. And I think this is like a big opportunity in the space, where there definitely will be some products that are going to leverage this more on the guest side.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thinking about the, I mean, we're seeing consolidation within the hotel tech space
Yeah.
over the last couple of years. That is a natural cycle that you just see. New startups come in, they get picked up. You know, that's the way of the world. I
Yeah.
guess one of the areas I'm interested to get your thoughts on is if we start to look at maybe two. And I don't like to separate out the hotel industry in this way, but for the purpose of this
Hmm.
discussion, I will. So if we look at the big brands and the large hotel management companies
Yeah.
with multi hotels, either under franchise or under management. And then
Hmm.
we look at medium or smaller groups, independent hotels.
Hmm.
To me, it doesn't seem a massive leap, but I'm conscious I could be missing something here.
Hmm.
It doesn't seem a massive leap for those major brands to almost be replicating what the large corporate outside hotel industries are doing with the consultancies in terms
Hmm.
of one, if the hotel groups start to focus on having a more consolidated, as you say, structured,
Hmm.
consolidated, clean data platform, then
Hmm.
for them to start to build AI agents and adopt an agentic AI approach
Hmm.
to interrogating and actioning that data,
Hmm.
that would appear to present two potential challenges. One would be maybe a greater separation, the kind of the
Hmm.
haves and the have-nots. So you could argue that the major brands would start to move further ahead, and the
Hmm.
smaller groups and independent hotels could get left behind a little bit potentially.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess also I'm looking at it in terms of them from your side as a tech solution provider.
Yeah.
If the large groups and management companies are starting to do a lot of stuff in house,
Hmm.
how does the landscape change? So we've got two areas here: the landscape changing
Yeah.
for the hotels, and then the landscape changing for the tech providers into that hotel market. What do you kind of see on that side moving forward?
You mean how smaller groups will still be able to compete with the bigger
Yeah, I mean,
hotel
do you?
management companies? And yeah.
I guess as a starting point, is that a
Yeah.
hypothesis that you think could play out? Would you see major hotel brands
Yeah.
leaning into less cloud-based solutions that they're buying from third parties and
Hmm.
starting to look at how can they develop agents and an agentic AI? I mean, we've seen
Yeah.
one of
Exactly.
the larger brands are investing quite heavily into their AI and data team. So it seems a
Yeah. Exactly.
process that they would be using less external, building it
Yeah.
more internal. And as that knowledge increases,
Yeah.
do so that's the first thing, I guess, is how do we see that division starting to occur, which would then obviously bring some threats to the hotel tech providers.
Yeah. Exactly. Um, I think where they so first of all, it's super important to have your data in one place, and I think the major brands really understand that. That's why they're investing so much in those data platforms. And there, then they can build agents that either is gonna yeah, create more efficiency on their operations, or create more experience around their product, or create a better understanding in their data. And to balance it out with kind of the smaller hotel groups and the more independent hotel groups, that's exactly why we exist as BookBoost as well. Because we bring that customer data together. We plug into all the different systems, the property management system, spa system, restaurant system, create that master profile, and we also help those smaller groups then to directly derive insights with AI from their customer data. And we've built an agentic platform on top of that customer data platform. And first example of that is our bot agent API. But this product enables also smaller groups to build their own agents on top of their communication data, on top of their customer data. Because every hotel group, small or big, they have their own product, they have their own experience they want to create, they have a tone of voice, they have a certain branding. And therefore, what we also see in the market is that there are tens or even hundreds of different chatbots that do different jobs, right? So therefore, they also connect to our kind of agent marketplace, consume customer data, consume communication data, and help hotels creating their experience.
That makes sense.
I think on the hotel tech providers like us as BookBoost, we will create products that will enable those different sized groups to use AI on top of their customer data and operational data.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, I can see the value to that. In terms of, I'm always interested in looking at new solutions, if I call it that come onto the market. Because typically we always get caught up in the hype around it, and we don't always look at what's going on behind. And you've mentioned on a number of occasions the D word during this conversation, because everything we now know hinges around the data, how that data is structured, how accessible that data is, how it can be used. So you could be sitting there as a hotelier really invested in these AI agents and thinking, hell yeah, let's lean into this. What can we do? Yeah, we want to take this on ourselves. But there are some challenges that exist within both the way hotels are structured, and also policies that exist, in different countries about approach to data. So I mean, you're having to deal with this all the time. So no point me trying to hypothesize. Can you kind of just outline for hoteliers that are watching and listening to this, just considerations they should have in mind around the data specifically, when you're thinking of either having a solution or even contemplating, this whole agentic AI agents working with your data?
Yeah, exactly. So AI and agentic AI is only powerful when it has the right context, right? You can write a big instruction for a bot, but if it doesn't have the right data, it will hallucinate and still render stuff, but it might not be so specific to your business. So it might be very generic. So therefore, it's super important to have your data in place, and also not be messy with it, right? So when we build our customer data platform out, we make sure that first of all, we structure the data in the right way, so the system doesn't have to guess what data is what, right? That we cluster the data, so we don't have duplicates. We clean it up, so to say.
Yep.
And thirdly, that's the right people or agents, right, have access to the right data.
Yeah.
We also don't want an agent to provide them with too much data, because that extra context might be leaking information
Yeah.
to the wrong guests or to the wrong people in the organization.
Makes sense.
So it's extremely important that we are all very careful as well with what data we share with our with the models. So the data remains secure and privacy is also how to say, guarded.
Yeah, I was going to say security. I mean, I don't know whether the news has reached outside of the UK, but we've had a couple of our major retail groups have been affected quite heavily with
Yeah,
hacks into their system. So I'm not comparing these two things, but security of data
yeah,
is going to be a pretty paramount consideration.
100%. Like, I mean, everybody has AI, right?
Hmm.
So it's us on the hotel side, hospitality side, trying to figure out how we use it. And smart hackers also have AI.
Yeah,
So all of a sudden, what work they would do before to kind of scan on vulnerabilities in certain organizations, they can also all automate this right now. So security becomes much more of an important topic. So that's also why we make sure we have the right protections and policies and procedures on when we build and deploy systems or which API points we expose. And I would encourage everybody in the hospitality industry to really be aware of all the systems they have connected, where customer data is, who has logins to what, that have two-factor authentication, this type of stuff, and have some training for staff on these common attacks like phishing. I mean, we all know some examples from the industry how
yeah, yeah,
this went wrong.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, also hackers have AI or malicious organizations, and therefore it's now even more important to invest in organized data, organized customer data, operational data.
Yeah.
So when it's organized, you can also protect it because you have an overview of where what is.
Makes a lot of sense. And I guess we talk a lot about the big risks like that because it
Yeah,
makes the headlines. But I guess one of the other areas that's also really critically important is, I mean, in Europe particularly, and I know there are within certain states of the US, but I mean, in Europe, GDPR is a massive factor. So I mean,
yeah,
just ensuring that the data and how you're using that data and what you're doing with that data, you
hmm,
are compliant. So again, as a hotelier, if I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've got this heap of data, I'm going to go and
mm,
have some agents built. I mean, you got to make sure that the way that you are using that data and what you're going to do with it, you are compliant first and foremost, and that's
yeah.
not an area that's easy to get your head around.
No, exactly. No, and it sits on two sides, right? It sits on the system side and how you have organized your data processes and systems and how you've secured that. And equally, I think even more important, and also how we have seen how many hacks happen,
Mm.
is actually on the people side, right?
Hmm.
Because people know how to log in, they have their authentication, and maybe they're not well trained on how to be aware of certain hacking techniques.
Yeah,
Um, so both people and systems, digital systems, are super important to be aware of how to secure that and how data privacy and data processing is organized.
no, that makes a lot of
Um,
sense.
yeah. So for us, it's, for example, I mean, for especially for European hotels, it's important that all the data is stored in Europe.
Yeah,
And I see in the market a motion that, especially with global politics, that people are asking more and more if it's not only the data is stored in a regional place, but even if the data is stored by a European provider.
yeah.
And
Oh,
actually, there
really?
we are.
So it's not so that
Yeah.
right. So they're actually looking at a Europe. Some are asking about a European provider, not just that it's sitting on a server based in Europe somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, powers outside of Europe still have a lot of influence
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
of what kind of data access we have access to.
yeah.
So there's this huge European initiative of all kinds of business leaders to bring more technology, also natively to Europe. So it's not only a regional data center, our data is housed in, but it's also a European provider. We're not ready for that with Europe yet. So
No,
I
sure.
think like 98% of our data is still stored on European service from American companies, right?
Yeah,
Still
yeah, yeah,
European service.
yeah.
But there's definitely also motions with parties from France, from Europe, also from the Scandinavian area, where there's data providers that actually compete with the likes of AWS or Azure or Google Cloud.
Interesting. Interesting. Final question, because I'm conscious of your time. And this, I think, is hopefully all the questions have been important, but this one in particular, I think, and relevance for you guys, because we're now entering a period where people start to have early considerations for their budgets for 2026. They're starting to
Mhm.
formulate where they want to be investing.
Yeah.
Media, event organizers are great at leaning into the new shiniest bit of tech or the newest hot topic that promises the world. And I totally understand the rationale, probably why we're
Mhm.
doing a video around AI agents, because it gets traction.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Exactly.
but the concern I sometimes have is that these become a little bit of a distraction. They can create some confusion from the hotelier side, maybe a degree of hesitation.
Mm.
If I'm looking at my budget, should I be investing in technology? Should I be waiting? Is this newly developing? Just that. Which way should I turn? So without an overt book boost pitch,
Mm.
but with a general tech investment pitch.
Yeah.
What what would you be advising if hoteliers came to you and said, "Hey, look, this is all going on in the world at the moment. I want to put some money aside to be looking at tech
Mhm.
investment. Should I be holding and waiting for this to develop further? Should I be
Mm.
leaning into what should I be doing? What advice would you be giving them?"
Yeah. I mean, first of all, there's, as you mentioned yourself, there's so much shiny objects in the market, right? And at scale, they will only work well when you have your data organized.
Yeah.
And yes, that's the book boost pitch. But I can definitely not underline enough how important it is to have your customer data together and have your customer operation data together and basically everything around that customer. Because in the end, it's your customers, the hotel's customers that pay the bills. So with that, there's a lot of opportunity to create better experiences, to automate more of the customer operations, to create more personalization, to even automate things like housekeeping or get better insights on your reputation, what people give feedback on. And that all houses into having that customer data all centralized into one customer data platform. And yeah, I cannot underline enough how important that is, because if you have that right, then on top of that, you can start working with agents. And I think it's always interesting to have, if you're a hotelier, to have a conversation with a tech guy or a tech woman on what they think you can do with your data, how a tech invested person thinks, like how this data and how AI can contribute to also the concept and the product you're creating in the market, and hospitality product. And the first question will always be, okay, I have this a language model, or I have this maybe even visual model. What is the data this model can consume? And that's why it's so important to have that customer data centralized, because from that point, you can start creating experiences, you can start deriving insights, and you can start automating customer operations.
That makes a lot.
Um,
Yeah, makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. Sorry, no, go on.
Um,
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was get the data fundamentals right. Then agentic AI can be super powerful, and I'm always get very excited to have conversations about different use cases of agentic AI with hoteliers.
I think there's also another excuse to get you back on then, and you can talk to us about some of the use cases that you're seeing.
Yeah, let's go.
Absolutely. Well, look, that's the purpose of this series was really just to kind of get that conversation out there, do a little bit of future gazing to see what may be happening down the line, but then also to bring it back to a point that, yes, this is new technology. It is evolving quickly, but there is still a time window. And probably the sitting there and waiting is possibly, you could argue, not the smartest thing to be doing, because the competition aren't waiting. They're going to be investing in technology. But I think what the realization that should be dawning on everybody now is like humans, we can't exist without oxygen. And the oxygen now seems to be the data within the hotel. And if you don't get that right, if you don't have that structure correctly, if you don't have a right platform that can then do something with that data, then everything else becomes irrelevant. But you get that right, and everything else can build from that point onwards. So no, I think
actually
very, very useful, very interesting.
And maybe one more thing on that. I think it's also so important to invest in your team. In educating your team on what the possibilities are and giving them the right tools. So, for example, in Bookboost, like we invest a lot in making the team more AI native. So we can see the team is creating different mini apps for internal processes, really to solve like really specific problems. But we have our data organized. We make sure that the team is articulate with using AI tools like V0 or Lovable or Bolt, so they can actually automate different processes in the organization with just like prompting and writing zero code. So all of a sudden, everybody in Bookboost is creating and automating, and it really starts with enabling your team and training your team to be to be articulate or lingual with AI agents. I don't know if I made up that word, but
it works. I know what you're saying. Absolutely. And I think, that applies not only, as you say, to whether you're on the tech side of things, and this is very much at the forefront, but also on the hotelier side of things, because getting staff within a hotel to take on technology has often been a challenge, and kind of educating them, training them, showing them how being more lingual, to use your word, with AI, or at least what it can do, will open up maybe, or break down some of those barriers that they say to the adoption of it. So no, I think that's a very good point to leave it on. Thank you for that.
Yeah, actually, it's also fun to get creative with your team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and see what they can come up with.
That's also important. Yeah, exactly.
Very much so. Well, look, I appreciate your time and sharing those insights with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thank you as well, Trevor, and nice to speak.
Likewise.